Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we're going to continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam today, Canto 6, chapter 16. So we are going to recap a bit about what we read yesterday. Auntie Rashmi,
हाँ,
आप बताएंगे?
हरे कृष्णा, हरे कृष्णा। राजा चंद्रकेतु के पुत्र का उन्होंने दाह संस्कार कर लिया, अनुष्ठान किया, और वो वैसे तो इस मोह से निकलना बहुत कठिन है, लेकिन वो सरलता से इसका त्याग कर परित्याग कर दिया, क्योंकि उन्होंने है ना अंगिरा ऋषि और नारद मुनि के उपदेशों से वो जागृत हो गए और उनको आत्मज्ञान हो गया। तो उससे वो इस स्नेह बंधन से अपने आप को उन्होंने बाहर निकाल लिया। जैसे कि एक हाथी कीचड़ में से निकल जाता है, इसीलिए वैसे वो भी ये परिवार के जीवन के अंधकूप से बाहर निकल गए इजीली।
Very nice.
और
Thank you.
फिर उन्होंने यमुना जल में स्नान किया और अपने पूर्वजों को, देवताओं को, सबको अर्घ्य प्रदान किया, और बड़े ही आदर पूर्वक और शरणागति से अंगिरा मुनि और नारद मुनि को नमस्कार किया। तो उसका राजा चित्रकेतु को इतना संयमित और शरणागत देखकर नारद मुनि ने प्रसन्न होकर उनको एक मंत्र बताया। वो मंत्र इस प्रकार है, यदि आप चाहेंगे तो मैं ये पैराग्राफ पढ़ूं मंत्र का हिंदी में।
हाँ हाँ, पढ़िए पढ़िए।
हाँ, पढ़ती हूँ। तो ओमकार ओमकार नाम से संबोधित किए जाने वाले हे ईश्वर, हे पूर्ण पुरुषोत्तम भगवान, मैं आपको आदर नमस्कार करता हूँ। हे भगवान वासुदेव, मैं आपका ध्यान करता हूँ। हे भगवान प्रद्युम्न, भगवान अनुरुद्ध तथा भगवान संकर्षण, मैं आपको सादर नमस्कार करता हूँ। हे दिव्य शक्ति के आगार, हे परमानंद, मैं आत्मनिर्भर तथा परम शांत आपको सादर नमस्कार करता हूँ। हे परम सत्य अद्वितीय, आप ब्रह्म, परमात्मा तथा भगवान रूप में जाने जाते हैं, अतः आप समस्त ज्ञान के आगार हैं। मैं आपको सादर नमस्कार करता हूँ। तो इसका ये मतलब हुआ कि उन्होंने कहा कि हम भगवान को, ईश्वर को ओम कहकर भी पुकार सकते हैं, और ये ओम जो है वो सारे ब्रह्मांड में जैसे इकोसिस्टम होता है ना, वैसे वो ओम चल रहा है। तो ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, तब वासुदेवा को बताया कि नारायण का विस्तार है वासुदेव, और वो उसके बाद प्रद्युम्न, अनुरुद्ध और संकर्षण रूप का विस्तृत किया उन्होंने, वासुदेव जी ने। फिर उसके बाद संकर्षण ने श्री नारायण का दूसरा विस्तार किया, और उसमें प्रद्युम्न, संकर्षण और अनुरुद्ध का विस्तार हुआ। इस समूह के का मूल कारण 3 पुरुष अवतार हैं, करणोदक्ष विष्णु, गर्भोदक्ष विष्णु और शिरोदक्ष विष्णु। तो इसमें शिरोदक्ष विष्णु जो है वो प्रत्येक ब्रह्मांड के श्वेत द्वीप नामक लोक में वो स्थिर रहते हैं, अवतरित रहते हैं हमेशा, और उनसे अनेकों ब्रह्मांडों का अवतार होता रहता है। जैसे कि वो बोलते हैं कि पूर्ण पुरुषोत्तम भगवान, जो कि अद्वित है, अभिन्न है, अच्युत है, अमोघ है, अचूक है, और वो कभी भी उनका पतन नहीं होता। लेकिन हम जो जीव हैं, हम हालांकि उनके अंश हैं, लेकिन फिर भी हमारा पतन होता है, क्योंकि हम अणु हैं और वो विभु हैं। वो विराट है, हम सूक्ष्म हैं, तो उसकी वजह से हमारा शरीरों में भिन्नता है। पर ये बात हुई कि शरीर तो हम ऐसे लगता तो है कि ये कृष्णा शरीर है, लेकिन और हमारे ही समान है दिखने में और सब है, लेकिन नहीं, ऐसे नहीं है। भगवान श्री कृष्ण दिव्य है, पूर्ण है और उनका शरीर नहीं है। वो शरीर आत्मा दो अलग चीज नहीं है, वो बहुत दिव्य और ज्ञानमयी है। तो लेकिन हम तो ऐसे हैं कि अपने विकारों के कारण, अपनी इच्छाओं के कारण, वासनाओं के कारण दुख सुख प्राप्त करते रहते हैं, समय समय पर दुखी होते, चिंताएं करते हैं, सब करते हैं। जिस प्रकार गर्मी और सर्दी में हमको अलग अलग किस्म के वस्त्र धारण करने होते हैं, उसी प्रकार हम भी अलग अलग वस्त्र धारण करके अपने सुख दुखों के अनुरूप वस्त्र धारण यानी शरीर धारण करते हैं समय समय पर। और कभी मानव जीव का शरीर, कभी पशु का और कभी कभी देवताओं का भी शरीर धारण करते हैं। तो लेकिन ये जो प्रभु हैं वो ज्ञानमय है और इससे स्पष्ट है कि हमारे व्यवहार में और उनमें बहुत ज्यादा फर्क है। जैसे प्रभु ने सूर्य का ज्ञान सुना तो उनको याद है हमेशा, लेकिन हम तो कल की बात को भी भूल जाते हैं। हम इतने छोटे और इतने अणु हैं कि हम एक दिन की बात को भी याद नहीं रख सकते हैं, क्योंकि भगवान सदैव ही दिव्य है, आनंद है और उनके आनंद का कोई कारण नहीं है। उनका आनंद उनके अंदर से ही वो आनंदित होते हैं, आनंद कर। लेकिन हम जीवों को आनंद के लिए अपने आसपास देखना पड़ता है, यहाँ वहां से ढूंढना पड़ता है कि आनंद कहाँ है, किस चीज में से हमको आनंद मिलेगा और किस चीज की हम खोज करें, ये करें जिससे हमको आनंद की प्राप्ति होए। फिर भी हम आनंद प्राप्त इजीली नहीं कर सकते हैं। हमेशा सदैव छोटी छोटी बातों को लेकर चिंताग्रस्त रहते हैं। तो लेकिन कोई कोई जीव भक्त जो कि दिव्य भक्त है, वो जीव ही है आनंद में रहते हैं। क्यों? क्योंकि वो भगवान की शरण में रहते हैं, भगवान की दिव्य सेवा में रहते हैं और उनकी भक्ति में रहते हैं, तभी वो संतुष्ट रहते हैं। तो इसी प्रकार भगवान कहते हैं कि भगवान का ये कहना है कि वो सर्वशक्तिमान है, तभी वो सर्वशक्तिमान कहलाते हैं। तो अपने आनंद से, व्यक्तिगत आनंद का अनुभव करते हुए हम लोग भौतिक जीवन की लहरों में भटकते रहते हैं। तो हे ईश्वर, मैं आपको सादर नमस्कार करता हूँ। आप इंद्रियों के परम न्याय स्रोत है, तो आपके रूप और प्रकाश का जो कि बहुत अनंत है, आप महान हैं, अतः मैं आपको सादर नमस्कार करता हूँ। तो क्यों? क्योंकि प्रभु हमेशा दिव्य सत्य में है, सत्व में है और हम भौतिक शरीर हैं। ये जो हमारे में डिफरेंस है, वो डिफरेंस बहुत ज्यादा है। वो इंद्रियों के स्वामी हैं, सब इंद्रियों के परम स्वामी हैं और हम इस भौतिक जगत के शरीर की लहरों में हमेशा भटकते रहते हैं। तो हे प्रभु, और हम ऐसे हैं कि हम हमको कुछ भी काम करने के लिए जो इंद्रियां हैं, वो हमारी भिन्न भिन्न इंद्रियां हैं, जिनसे हम आंखों से आंखों का काम, देखने का काम कर सकते हैं, कानों से कान का सुनने का काम कर सकते हैं, हाथों से काम करने का कर सकते हैं। लेकिन जो जो प्रभु है, वो तो हर इंद्री से हर प्रकार का अपना काम कर सकते हैं। तो हे प्रभु, हम ऐसे पुरुषोत्तम प्रभु को हमारा सादर नमस्कार है। हरि हरि बोल, हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Auntie. Thank you so much. Very nice. आपने
हरे
बहुत एक
कृष्णा।
इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट पे बोला था कि
बहुत लंबा बोल दिया ना, बहुत
नहीं
लंबा।
नहीं नहीं नहीं, बरोबर है, ठीक है। आपने एक अच्छा पॉइंट बोला कि चित्रकेतु को क्यों नारद मुनि ने मंत्र दिया, क्योंकि
मंत्र दिया।
उसका
हाँ
बिहेवियर देख के, उसका ह्यूमिलिटी, उसके सरेंडर देख के,
हाँ,
उससे
सरेंडर देख के और देखा वो बैलेंस्ड हो गए हैं अब, तो
हाँ,
उनको हाँ
तो हम ये सीख सकते हैं कि
हाँ
हमें भी
हाँ,
अगर एडवांस करना है स्पिरिचुअल लाइफ में, तो
तो
कैसे अट्रैक्ट कर सकते हैं, हमें भी ह्यूमिलिटी, स्टेडीनेस ऑफ माइंड, टॉलरेंस,
और पूर्ण गुरु का शरण,
सरेंडर। हाँ, तो
सरेंडर
फिर
जैसे इन्होंने किया। हाँ,
राइट, थैंक यू। तो फिर उससे हम गुरु और कृष्णा के मर्सी को अट्रैक्ट कर सकते हैं।
अट्रैक्ट कर सकते हैं। हाँ,
थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक यू। खाली एक पॉइंट में आपने बोला हम शरीर है, पर एक्चुअली हम शरीर के अंदर है, वो आई एम श्योर आप जानते
अंदर है
होंगे ऐसे।
वह, हाँ,
हाँ,
हम भौतिक शरीर है।
right.
हाँ,
हम शरीर के अंदर है, हम आत्मा है,
अंदर है,
भौतिक
और
शरीर।
पर वो समझ नहीं रहे ना,
हाँ, वो समझते
जीवात्मा।
नहीं हैं। हाँ,
हाँ,
हम समझते
जीवात्मा
नहीं
है।
हैं।
हम ज्यादा
हम्म,
शरीर से, और शरीर के कारण फिर माया, इस माया का भी इसने
हम्म,
बताया, तो वो माया
हाँ,
में हम लिप्त हो जाते हैं बार बार शरीर की वजह से।
दैट्स राइट, थैंक यू, थैंक यू आंटी।
है।
तो फिर अभी
हरे
कंटिन्यू करेंगे
कृष्ण।
आज के लिए। थैंक यू सो
हाँ,
मच।
हरे
हरे कृष्ण।
कृष्ण।
23 यन्न स्पर्शन्ति न विदुर
यन्न स्पृशन्ति न विदुर्
मनो बुद्धीन्द्रियासवः
मनोन्द्रिया स्वः
अन्तर्बहिश्च विततम्
अन्तर्बहिश्च
अन्तर्बहिश्च विततम्
व्योमवदन्नतोऽस्मि अहम्।
व्योमवत्तन्न
तन्नतोऽस्मि अहम्।
Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The Supreme Brahman emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and expands like the sky. Although untouched by anything material, it exists within and without. Nonetheless, the mind, intelligence, senses, and living force can neither touch him nor know him. I offer unto him my respectful obeisances. So Brahman kidhar se, where does the Brahman come from? In this prayer, Narad Muni is telling us, Brahman is coming from the body of Krishna. The Brahman is coming from the Supreme Person and is spreading everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. Even this material world is situated on the Brahman. But that does not mean that the Brahman has become material. Brahman is always Brahman, can never become material, you know. So, always spiritual. So, then going on. Dehendriya prana manodyomi
देहेन्द्रियप्राणमनोधियामि
yadam shavidda pracharanti karmasu.
यदांशविद्या प्रचरन्ति कर्मसु
कर्मसु
Naivanyadaloham iva prataptam
निर्वाणमोहमिव अप्रप्तम्
haneshu tadrishtrapadeshameti.
स्थानेषु तद्दृष्ट उपदेशमिति।
As iron has the power to burn when made red hot in the association of fire, so the body, senses, living force, mind, and intelligence, although merely lumps of matter, can function in their activities when infused with a particle of consciousness by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As iron cannot burn unless heated by fire, the bodily senses cannot act unless favored by the Supreme Brahman. Red hot iron can burn, but it cannot burn the original fire. Therefore, the consciousness of the small particle of Brahman is fully dependent on the power of the Supreme Brahman. So Prabhupada is explaining, when iron becomes hot, if we touch it, we will get burnt. But can the iron burn the fire? No, he's getting his fiery quality from the fire itself. The fire is fiery, so who can burn fire then? So similarly, we are getting why we are Brahman, because we are part and parcel of the Supreme Brahman. We are particle of Brahman. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, Mata smritir jnanam apohanam cha. From me, the conditioned soul receives memory, knowledge, and forgetfulness. The power for activities comes from the Supreme Lord. And when the Lord withdraws this power, the conditioned soul no longer has energy with which to act through his various senses. So we are getting our power from Krishna. Just like our homes have this small, the bulb is lighting up. Where's the power coming from? It's coming from the big powerhouse. That's why our homes have the power. So there's a storehouse. Similarly, our power is coming from the source of all power. That's God, the supremely powerful. The body includes 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 active senses, and the mind, but actually these are merely lumps of matter. For example, the brain is nothing but matter. But when electrified by the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the brain can act, just as iron can burn when made red hot by the influence of fire. The brain can act while we are awake or even while we are dreaming. But when we are fast asleep or unconscious, the brain is inactive. Since the brain is a lump of matter, it does not have independent power with which to act. It can act only when favored by the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Brahman or Para-Brahman. So, we have our body, our eyes, ears, mouth, the skin, the nose. So these senses can act only when the soul is in the body. Then it can act. Once the soul is out of the body, even though the senses are there, the eyes are still there but cannot see. The ears are there but can't hear. Nose is there but can't smell. So where's the power coming from? Because the soul was inside the body. And that soul is in the body by the will of the Supreme Lord. The soul is getting the power from the Supreme Lord. Just as Prabhupada is mentioning brain. Brain is also there in the person who's dead, but can't function anymore because the soul is not there anymore. So we can see that how we are actually dependent on the Supreme Lord. This is the way to understand how the Supreme Brahman Krishna is present everywhere, just as the sunshine is present because of the sun god and the sun globe. The Supreme Lord is called Rishikesh. He's the only conductor of the senses. Unless empowered by his energy, our senses cannot act. In other words, he is the only seer, the only worker, the only listener, and the only active principle or supreme controller. So Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am the ability in man. That whatever ability we have is why we have that ability, because Krishna has ability. And he's giving us a very, very tiny portion of his ability by which we can act. Knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness is also coming from him. The ability to act is coming from him. Intelligence is coming from him. So what this whole body, this body that we are saying is us, that's also given to us by him. So he is the real owner of the body. He's the real owner of our senses. Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaya Mahanubhavaya. I'll just say the whole thing. Mahavibhuti Pataye Sakala Satvata Parivriddha Nikara Kara Kamala Kudma Lopala Lita Charana Ravinda Yugala Parama Parameshthin Namaste.
Om Namo Bhagavate Mahapurushaya Maha Anubhavaya Mahavibhuti Pataye सकल सत्व
सत्वत परिवृत्य निकर कर कमल
कुंडमल
फलान
लालितः
चरण
चरण अरविंद युगल परम परे
नमस्ते।
नमस्ते।
O transcendental Lord who are situated in the topmost planet of the spiritual world, your two lotus feet are always massaged by a multitude of the best devotees with their lotus bud hands. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, complete in 6 opulences. You are the Supreme Person mentioned in the Purusha Shukta prayers. You are the most perfect, self-realized Master of all mystic power. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto you. It is said that the absolute truth is one, but is manifested in different creatures as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So, God is a person, and there is this light coming from his body, that's the Brahman, and Paramatma is his expansion by which he is accompanying us in this material world. He's entered every atom of the universe. The previous verses describe the Brahman and Paramatma features of the Absolute Truth. Now this prayer is offered in Bhakti Yoga to the Absolute Supreme Person. The words used in this regard are Sakala Satvata Parivrita. The word Satvata means devotees and Sakala means altogether. The devotees who also have lotus feet serve the lotus feet of the Lord with their lotus hands. The devotees may sometimes not be competent to serve the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore the Lord is addressed as Parama Parameshthin. He is the Supreme Person, yet he is very kind to the devotees. No one is competent to serve the Lord, but even if a devotee is not competent, the merciful Lord accepts the humble attempt of the devotee. So, a young child may not know how to cook very nicely, but he sees, today is my mother's birthday, let me make breakfast for her. And somehow or the other, he makes a breakfast for her. So the mother is so happy, she accepts it. He is not an expert chef or anything, but because he is making out of love, whatever he is attempting, it fills the mother's heart. So similarly, the Supreme Lord, we are so tiny. After all, what service can we give him? Yes, unlimited goddesses of fortune serving him. But when the devotee out of love does something for the Lord, to reciprocate with his devotee, accepts the service. So as the Lord has lotus feet and lotus hands, the devotee's hands are also lotus-like. The devotee's feet are also lotus-like. The devotee is taking on the qualities of the Supreme Lord. As the Lord is beautiful, the devotee is also beautiful. Shishuka Vacha
Srishuka Uvacha
Bhakta Yeitam Prapannaya
Bhaktai Etam Prapannaya
Vidyam Adishya Narada
Vidyam Aditya
Adishna
Naradaha
Yayav Angirasa Sakam
Yayo Angira
Shata
Sakam
Dhama Swayambhuvam Prabho.
Dhama Swayambhuvam Prabhu.
Sri Sukadev Goswami continued, Narad, having become the spiritual master of Citraketu, instructed him fully in this prayer because Citraketu was fully surrendered. O King Parikshit, Narad then left with the great sage Angira for the topmost planet known as Brahmalok. When Angira had first come to visit King Citraketu, he did not bring Narad with him. However, after the death of Citraketu's son, Angira brought Narad to instruct King Citraketu about Bhakti Yoga. The difference was that in the beginning, Citraketu was not in a temperament of renunciation. But after the death of his son, when he was overwhelmed by his great plight, he was awakened to the platform of renunciation by instructions regarding the falsity of this material world and material possessions. It is only at this stage that Bhakti Yoga can be instructed. As long as one is attached to material enjoyment, Bhakti Yoga cannot be understood. So Angira Muni, when he came before, he didn't give the transcendental knowledge to Citraketu because he knew Citraketu was not yet ready to receive it. Citraketu wanted a son, he had material desires. But now, when the son is gone, Citraketu is in a very lamenting position. He's, trying to understand what this material world is all about, trying to understand, oh, there is no actual real happiness here. So he is now receptive to receive the transcendental knowledge. So Prabhupada is mentioning that till the time we think that, oh, we can enjoy in this material world, till that time, the transcendental knowledge will not awaken in our heart. So, pure devotional service, one can begin when one can understand, oh, this material world actually is not a place for enjoyment. When we can come to this platform, then can begin pure devotional service. As long as one is attached to material enjoyment, Bhakti Yoga cannot be understood. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 2:44. Bhogeshwarya prashaktana taya pahrata chetasam yavasayatmika buddhi samadho na vidhiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. As long as one is very much attached to material enjoyment, one cannot concentrate his mind on the subject matter of devotional service. So the Krishna consciousness movement is progressing successfully in the Western countries at the present moment because the youth in the West have reached the stage of vairagya or renunciation. They are practically disgusted with material pleasure from material sources, and this has resulted in a population of hippies throughout the Western countries. Now, if these young people are instructed about Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness, the instructions will certainly be effective. So Srila Prabhupada is saying that, oh, how is it that the Westerners are taking up Bhakti Yoga? Because they were disgusted with material life. They had left their homes. They were trying to understand what is this material world all about. So they were very receptive to receiving the knowledge, to engaging in bhakti. So Prabhupada is mentioning here the verse 244, that till the time one has a desire to enjoy the material world, the resolute determination, the vyavasayatmika buddhi will not happen, the firm determination. So we may have material desires, but we continue engaging in devotional service. Then gradually, the material desires will reduce. It may be very immediate for someone, but for someone, it may be gradual process. Depends on each individual. As soon as Citraketu understood the philosophy of Vairagya Vidya, the knowledge of renunciation, he could understand the process of Bhakti Yoga. In this regard, Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya has said, Vairagya Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga. Vairagya Vidya and Bhakti Yoga are parallel lines. One is essential for understanding the other. It is also said, Bhaktihi Parishanu Bhavo Viraktir Anyatra Cha, Bhagavatam 11:2-42. Advancement in devotional service of Krishna consciousness is characterized by increasing renunciation of material enjoyment. So the devotee, the more devotional service he does, to that degree he renounces the material world also. Because more of his time, energy, mind, body is used in devotional service. So to that degree, he's renouncing the material world. Narad Muni is the father of devotional service, and therefore, just to bestow costless mercy upon King Citraketu, Angira brought Narad Muni to instruct the king. These instructions were extremely effective. Anyone who follows in the footsteps of Narad Muni is certainly a pure devotee. So Prabhupada is saying Angira Muni got Narad Muni so that Narad Muni could give these instructions to Citraketu, could give him this mercy. That's why he's. And Narad Muni is a great spiritual master. You know, you can see that he has turned the hearts of so many people. So following in the footsteps of Narad Muni, he's a Mahajan. That is what we are encouraged to engage in devotional service as Narad Muni is engaging. And wherever he goes, he speaks about Krishna. Whoever he meets, he speaks about Krishna. He's actually following Yare Dekha Tare Kaha Krishna Upadesh. Did anyone have any comments?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
This is very important. The knowledge of renunciation, it goes hand in hand. It increases renunciation when you really understand why we are doing devotional service. So when we are chanting, we have to be really we have to really understand, why we are doing it. We must understand that He is the Supreme Lord. He is the doer. We are listening so much repeatedly. Without His power, without His energy, we are not able to do anything. It's His will and it's His sanction. So we must understand this when we are chanting all the time. These both have to be there. Without that, chanting really doesn't. It does. It is a process, of course. Like you've been always saying, we are all on the way. But then, when we are sitting to chant, if we can really, understand why we are doing that devotional service to Him, why we are chanting for Him, we have to respect that He is the supreme. We have to understand. We've been reading so much. We have seen that without His will, nothing has really worked. Without His sanction, nothing has really worked. His energy is very important. Even if we are enjoying, like we have been reading today, even if we are enjoying this material world, if we can keep Him in the center, it doesn't matter what we are doing. We are functioning in this world. We have to. But then if we can keep Him in the center, why are we even doing that? Is it in pleasure of Krishna? Is it really making Him happy? If not, then we should understand, intelligently analyze, like we are reading, that no, we don't have to be there. We don't have to do this. So keeping these two things, very, very important sentence, what we read now. Vairagya Vidya and Bhakti Yoga are parallel lines. So it increases the renunciation of material enjoyment. Eventually, we will know. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Shilpaji, this also
Hare
says,
Krishna.
no, that there are two sons of bhakti. Only after when you do bhakti, then only you get vairagya and knowledge. Only then you get it. Otherwise, it's a false. So yeah. So means this is just repeating that part, that the bhakti has two sons, and vairagya and knowledge only comes then when you do bhakti. It automatically comes. You don't have to do anything with it. It automatically comes. Because it's said in the first canto that when you do bhakti, vairagya and knowledge comes automatically. So yes, it is just emphasizing.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So they're just emphasizing. Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Citraketu stutam vidyam.
Citraketu stutam vidyam.
Yatha narada bhashitam.
Yatha narada bhasitam.
Dharayam asa saptaham.
Dharayam asa saptaham.
Abhakshaha susamahitaha.
Abhakshaha susamahitaha.
Fasting and drinking only water, Citraketu for 1 week continuously chanted with great care and attention the mantra given by Narad Muni. Tatasa sapta ratrante
Tata sa saptaratrante
vidyaya dharya manaya
vidyaya dharyamanaya
vidyadharadhipatyam cha
vidyadharadipatyam cha
lebhe pratihatam nripa.
lebe pratihatam nipa.
O King Parikshit, after only 1 week of repeatedly practicing the mantra received from the spiritual master, Citraketu achieved the rule of the planet of the Vidyadharas as an immediate product of his spiritual advancement in knowledge. If a devotee, after being initiated, adheres rigidly to the instructions of the spiritual master, is naturally endowed with the material opulences of Vidyadhara Adhipatyam and similar posts as byproducts. A devotee need not practice yoga, karma, or gyan to achieve a successful result. Devotional service alone is competent to award a devotee all material power. A pure devotee, however, is never attached to material power, although he gets it very easily without personal endeavor. Citraketu received the side benefit of his devotional service, which he rigidly performed in accordance with the instructions of Narad. So Citraketu was just simply following the orders of Narad Muni, and because he followed the orders of Narad Muni, he got this material opulence as a side reward. Like a side reward. You get one big reward, but you also get some side reward. So Prabhupada is saying anyone who's following the instructions of the spiritual master also gets material opulences. And that's like a byproduct because the main product is Krishna Prem. But one may get other material opulences also. Tata katipaya hobher
Tata katipaya hobir
vidya yeda manogate
vidyayeda manogatihi
jagama deva devasya
jagamadeva devasya
sheshasya charanantikam.
shesasya charanantikam.
Thereafter, within a very few days, by the influence of the mantra that Citraketu had practiced, his mind became increasingly enlightened in spiritual progress, and he attained shelter at the lotus feet of Anantadev. A devotee's ultimate achievement is to take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in any one of the planets in the spiritual sky as a result of rigid execution of devotional service. A devotee receives all material opulences if these are required. Otherwise, the devotee is not interested in material opulences, nor does the Supreme Lord award them. So, the Lord sees that if the devotee, if he gives him material opulence and then the devotee can engage that material opulence in his service, the Lord gives him the material opulence. If the Lord sees that it's not necessary, he doesn't. Because what the devotee actually wants is to associate with the Lord, to have this loving relationship with the Lord. The devotee does not want material opulence. He's looking for the association, and the Lord gives the association. And then the Lord may see, oh, if I give opulence, it will be the devotee can do greater service, then he gives him, like how we see for Srila Prabhupada. The Lord gave him so much opulence, so many big temples, so much opulence, because the Lord knew that Srila Prabhupada is going to engage it in his service, propagate Krishna consciousness everywhere, all over the world. So, when a devotee is actually engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, his apparently material opulences are not material, they are all spiritual. For example, if a devotee spends money to construct a beautiful and costly temple, the construction is not material but spiritual. Nirbandha Krishna Sambandhe, Yuktam Vairagyam Uchyate. A devotee's mind is never diverted to the material side of the temple. The brick, stone, and wood used in the construction of the temple are spiritual, just as the deity, although made of stone, is not stone, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. So Prabhupada is explaining that the devotee, he may get all material opulences, but those opulences are also not material, spiritual. Why? Because the devotee's consciousness is spiritual. He's looking at everything in relation to Krishna. So when one sees everything in relation to Krishna, then it's spiritual. It's nothing material anymore. Prabhupada is saying the devotee, he is looking the temple as the home of the Lord. The Lord himself is living in the temple. So the Lord is also there. His home is also spiritual. It may be made of bricks and stone or marble, but those are not material. They're spiritual because they are for the Lord, for the pleasure of the Lord. The more one advances in spiritual consciousness, the more he can understand the elements of devotional service. Nothing in devotional service is material. Everything is spiritual. Consequently, a devotee is awarded so-called material opulence for spiritual advancement. This opulence is an aid to help the devotee advance toward the spiritual kingdom. Thus, Maharaj Citraketu remained in material opulence as the Vidyadharpati, master of the Vidyadharas. And by executing devotional service, he became perfect within a very few days and returned home, back to Godhead, taking shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Shesh Ananta. So Prabhupada is saying that if the Lord sees that, oh, if I give opulence to a devotee, is it going to help him? If it helps him, he gives it to him. He gave Citraketu Maharaj. Citraketu Maharaj got the opulence, engaged in devotional service, and now he is seeing Lord Ananta. A karmi's material opulence and a devotee's material opulence are not on the same level. Srila Madhvacharya comments in this way. Anyantar yaminam Vishnu upasyanya samipaga bhavet yogyataya tasya padam va prapnuyan naraha. By worshipping Lord Vishnu, one can get whatever he desires. But a pure devotee never asks Lord Vishnu for any material profit. Instead, he serves Lord Vishnu without material desires and is therefore ultimately transferred to the spiritual kingdom. In this regard, Srila Veera Raghav Acharya comments, Yatheshta gatir iti artha. By worshipping Vishnu, a devotee can get whatever he likes. Maharaj Citraketu wanted only to return home, back to Godhead, and therefore he achieved success in that way. So Srila Prabhupada here is quoting Madhvacharya that, if one has material desires, even so, and if he worships Lord Vishnu will fulfill the material desires. But a devotee never asks for anything material. Prahlad Maharaj, when Lord Nrsingadev asked him, what do you want? He said, I don't want anything. I'm not doing business. I just simply want to serve you. That's what the devotee is always asking. Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram, that Lord Chaitanya is teaching us, that the devotee is praying that I just want to be situated at your lotus feet. I don't want anything. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundaram. I don't want followers. I don't want wealth. And I don't want women. So I just need your devotional service. So Citraketu also wanted to just go back home, back to Godhead. Is that okay?
Yes.
We'll stop here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.